It's very obvious to see when we observe life that there are many sides to the relationship humanity has to the Creator. The events that happen in this world are constantly keeping us in a search to understand the underlying meaning, the underlying method to all this madness. So when the world was younger, not the world in the sense of the planet, the world in the sense of humanity, when humanity was still in its earlier phases, it was easier to observe the underlying rationale of nature and how it evolves and how it develops. The events could be interpreted by the minds of those who have designated themselves to studying reality, to understanding how we are created and how we function, and what are the causes for the events that take place. The causes for the events humanity creates directly are easy to trace back to humanity. The causes that seem to be natural disasters or accidents and things that seem to be beyond the direct control of humans are more difficult to trace back. And yet, today, the world is getting closer and closer to being able to trace back pretty much everything to human behavior, human energies that make all the decisions on this planet and cause everything that's going to take place. So when we say that the Creator is running the world, that is true, because the Creator is the one that designed humans, but the Creator runs the world only through humans. Everything that's been designed has been designed previously so that whatever humans do, nature already knows how to react and how to cause balance to return. So there's no way we can leave the playing field. Everything is part of the design, and everything has been designed so that we succeed. This nature is always talking. This nature is the real reason for everything that's taking place. But when our language doesn't align with the language of nature, then we can't seem to make any sense of what's taking place. Because we might believe something is good, when in reality it's bad. We might believe something is bad, when in reality the world cannot live without it, which makes it good. And so, when we're looking at it, it will not necessarily make any sense. But the language is still speaking. The language hasn't stopped speaking. The language is still the reason why everything is happening. It's just chaos because the one running it doesn't understand what he's running. And so in the ancient world, people could trace calamities, people could trace natural disasters to the real energy, to the real vibration, to the real angel that caused that lack of balance to take place. The Torah points out specific events that tipped the scales, that caused a certain force to go out of its limit and to cause an event that happens here on earth. And the example, of course, is Sodom. People of Sodom were extremely accommodating to their own. Today we would call them very nice people. They were having a very nice life. All of them. Not just a few people, the head of the city, and everybody else was suffering. No, that's not Sodom. Sodom is a city where every citizen gets full rights, extreme pleasures, all forms of enjoyment. It was a very nice place to live. Lot saw it, and he right away knew where he wants to live. But there was a bit of a problem. The Sodomians were very practical. And they made a very simple calculation. We have such a beautiful city. Everybody's going to want to live in our city. And if everybody's going to live in our city is going to stop being beautiful. That's no good. Who's going to benefit from that? We're not going to have our fun, and nobody else will either. And so, their good had to be protected. We're good, but only to our people. We can't afford to be good to anybody else. They're just going to drain us. They're going to take everything we have, and then what? The Mishnah says, Shali, shali, shalach, shalach. If you say, mine is mine, and yours is yours. Some say, this is the way of the world. Others say, this is the way of Sodom. So what are they arguing about? Does the one that's saying it's the way of the world, does he not agree that it's the way of Sodom? The one that's saying it's the way of Sodom, doesn't he agree that this is the way of the world? Isn't this the way of the world? Mine is mine, yours is yours. This is why we have laws. This is why we have courts. This is why we have an entire system. So that mine shall be mine and yours shall be yours. And only if I agree can mine become yours and yours become mine. How else are we going to do it? And so, there's something hiding over here. There's something missing over here. There's something about the intent of these people that made their behavior unacceptable to the very nature that's creating us. Today they have evidence that a meteor crashed into the earth a few thousand years ago in that area where currently we have the Yam HaMelech. And so when it happened, it was a natural disaster. If it would have been today, it would have been reported in the news as a natural disaster. There would be no reports about behaviors of the people and how that's related to what took place. If anybody tried to link the events with their behavior, people would find that to be someone who is distant from reality. And yet, This is exactly what the Torah is telling us. That meteor landed exactly in that place at that time because they made it so. How? We don't yet understand. There are many things we don't understand. We don't understand how what is happening or why. So once we don't understand that, it makes sense that we don't understand many things. And yet, this is what we believe. This is what we believe because those people who explained this to us managed to do many other things also that were very impressive. And they managed to change human behavior to such a degree that here we are, thousands of years later, still trying to understand what they did and why they did it. And so in the ancient world, people represented personalities. Personalities represented ideology. We chose a certain behavior. We justified that behavior based on the circumstances, but that behavior was a result of an ideology. It was a result of a perception of life. It wasn't simply a behavior. That behavior, sometimes it's justified, sometimes it's the only way you'll survive. But why are you choosing it? What's your underlying belief? What do you believe about life? What do you believe about the world? What do you believe is happening here? Every person, the holy people, Chanoich, Noach, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Shem, Ever, all of them ideologies. Cain, Hevel, Cham, Canaan, Mitzrayim, Yishmael, Esav, Amalek, all of them ideologies. Why ideologies? Because they didn't go to school. They were just them. They believed the way it seemed to them. There was nothing else. There was no consensus. And so everyone a complete ideology, everyone a complete person. Not like today, a mix of a lot of people. Everybody one person. The good, very good. The bad, very bad. Sodom was an ideology. What was the ideology? The ideology was that if we're practical, when we're looking to survive, when we're looking for what's good for us, no one else matters. If we have to do something horrible to someone else because practically this is what's really going to bring us to where we want to be, then that person doesn't matter. They took ownership of the world in a way that made them the exclusive owners of a piece of land. And nobody is an exclusive owner of anything. We're all in partnership here. That's the only way it could be. The partners keep on changing. Some leave the partnership and new ones come in. And yet, this is a partnership. If, as a way of keeping peace within the partnership, we decide that mine is mine and yours is yours, then that's the way it has to be in order for the partnership to get along. But that's only because we agreed to that within the partnership. We can't now say what we're going to do to outsiders. We have no right over anybody. Sodom took the right over other people because they understood practically that this is what's best. We have no right to make any decisions for anyone else. They didn't own the land. They can't own the land. Kili kal haaretz, says the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Even when we're going to go into Eretz Yisrael and we're going to give pieces of land to people, it's going to be with a goyrel. It's going to be in the hands of the one who owns the land. And the rules are, you can't sell your land. It keeps on coming back to you. Because it's not yours in the first place. You can't sell what's not yours. It's there for you so that you can exist. Your existence is not yours. Your existence is someone else's. Your existence belongs to the one who exists and the one who owns all existence. You're renting existence from him. And so Sodom took ownership in a way that was not legal. It wasn't legal, not based on any laws, not based on any courts, but based on the nature of how we are, based on the nature of how we're created to be. And the event that made all the difference, the event that pushed things over the edge, was when they took one of their own, they violated their own principles because they were so upset that she helped an outsider. And so before, the agreement was they look out for each other. Only the outsider gets in trouble. The insiders are protected. But suddenly, hurting the outsider became more important than protecting the insider. And that's already a revelation of what's hiding in the heart. That's already a revelation of how rotten the ideology is in the first place. This wasn't about making something good. This wasn't about creating a better humanity. This was out of the closeness of their hearts, where they didn't want to share what was created for humanity with the rightful owners of humanity. What was driving these people was not kindness. And so the same behavior, when it's based on the right intentions, creates a very different result in nature than when it's based on the wrong intentions. The vibration of the heart is the intention. The action is a vessel. It's the vibration of the heart that's speaking to nature, that's inviting the angels that are going to come as a result, whatever direction it might be. And so Lot lives amongst these people, and yet he comes from an environment that's the exact opposite of these people. He comes from an environment where Avram is obsessed with helping strangers. He's in his old age. He's after surgery. He's in the third day, the worst time, the weakest time. And all he wants is to find someone that he can be kind to. If that's not being obsessed, I don't know what is. And so from that environment, Lloyd goes to Sodom. And slowly he becomes more and more like them. And yet something inside of him still knows, still remembers. And therefore, when the angels come, he protects them. And so therefore, because he's protecting them, he no longer is one that belongs in Sodom. He's no longer the ideology of Sodom. And so therefore he doesn't belong in whatever is going to happen to Sodom. And that leads to the rescue. And eventually to the foundation of two nations. Two nations that are no longer with us. And yet they left a lasting mark on humanity. The two nations that came from the daughters of Lot, Ammon and Moab, are no longer to be found on the map. But what they left for us is the dynasty of Malchus Beis David. And this is because David represents the exact opposite of Sodom. David, most of his life, was what we would call today an extremely violent man. And yet all his violence was only to cause a better humanity. The people in Sodom were all about enjoyment, were all about pleasure. But all their pleasure was to hurt humanity. David HaMelech was spilling blood, but all the blood he was spilling was to better humanity. And so his intention is what made him so beloved, made him so close to the Creator. Their intention is what made them so distant, made them so revolting, made the creation so upset that somehow they had to be erased. These events are much clearer when the people have their own ideologies. The good is separated from the evil. It's clear to see who belongs on which side of the aisle. This also results in the universe responding in a very clear manner. The messages, the signals, are very distinct. And so the results are swift and clear. By now, ideologies are washed out. People don't understand the very words they say they believe. And so humanity has lost its depth, has lost its authenticity. People are being commercialized through big organizations, education, trying to bring everybody to the same place, which means that humanity is no longer itself. It no longer has the natural diversity that it requires for its own balance. And so we can't really understand the language of how nature interacts with us. There's so much involved, there are so many nuances, and the signals are so mixed that we can't really understand. But what we should know, what we should remember, is that not only will every good deed result in a response from reality that is beneficial to humanity and to yourself, but every part of your intention that is even somewhat accurate is going to result in something beneficial to come to humanity and to yourself. And to see how far this goes, we see from the daughters of Lot that even though the entire nation that they brought into the world was wiped out, and the act was one that seemed to have no merit whatsoever, but because there was a thought of saving humanity within that act, because they believed that this was the only way for humanity to continue, this thought actually will materialize. They did save humanity. Because if not for Ruth, if not for Naamah, Ruth coming from Moab and Naamah coming from Ammon, the lineage of Mashiach wouldn't have been created. And so their thought, that intention, gave them access to reality, even though everything around it was rotten. And so this is something for us to remember, even though we cannot see the results, but we can still know the formula. The formula is, whatever you put in, you receive in return many, many fold. Every intention is a seed that's going to continue growing for thousands of years. We can't imagine the reward that all of the people that had any part in bringing Mashiach are going to receive. The joy that the Almighty is going to have when the world is redeemed is going to reverberate into all of these who had any part in making it happen. And so, for this portion of an intention, the amount of reward is infinite. For this little bit that they were different than Sodom because they did care and they did think humanity deserved a chance. For that they're going to receive to eternity. When the Zohar speaks about the place that Ruth has in the world to come, it's beyond anything imaginable. It's something that we wouldn't even know how to dream of. And all this as a result of one little movement towards doing what's right. And so this is something that we should realize from seeing the extreme reactions, from seeing how far it goes, even if the reaction is negative, like in the case of Sodom. Seeing the real power of our behaviors and what they can cause should make us rejoice in our power to gain while we're here. Because even throughout all the confusion, even if we don't know what we're doing, we can always have somewhat of a good intention. And that alone is a tremendous treasure. That alone will continue with us for eternity. And the more we go into that, the more we realize the importance of intention, the more we purify our intention, the more we invest our energy in that intention, the more it's going to repay us many, many fold. Because the way that we plant the seed is the way that it's going to grow. What's in the seed can eventually grow. What wasn't in the seed will never grow. It doesn't matter how well we water and sun and do whatever else. What wasn't in the seed will never grow. And so it's on us to plant the right seeds. May we have the wisdom and the love to do it appropriately.